So last year, a lot of people working at large automotive YouTube channels left their jobs.
That's it. Leaving Hoonigan.
I'm no longer an employee at Hoonigan.
I am no longer employed by Hoonigan.
I quit my job.
I have part ways with Fitment Industries.
What I wanted to talk about today is leaving Fitment.
I don't work at Donut anymore.
We're leaving Donut.
And I too have quit. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Victor De Leon. I worked 6 years behind the scenes at a large 2 million subscriber YouTube channel known as Throtl. And today I really want to share my perspective on what it's like to work in the automotive influencer industry. And I want to share the truth about a lot of things that the average viewer can only speculate about. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my experience working at Throtl, why I quit, why I think a lot of others are quitting, and I want to talk about what I think the future holds for you, the YouTube audience, and what it holds for somebody like me who works in content creation. So to give you the whole story, let's back up all the way to my first day at Throtl, maybe even a little before that. So to summarize my experience before working at Throtl, I'm a film school graduate, and then I moved from living in Connecticut to LA in 2015 to try to make it in the film industry. I kind of got chewed up and spit out, to make a long story short, and I actually kind of gave up on filmmaking for a whole year. And then about after a year, I just kind of felt like I wanted to get back into filmmaking. It's something that's always been a big part of my life, and YouTube was kind of starting to become a career choice. But I had just joined the San Diego Subaru car club. I asked around if I could film some install videos with some of my friends, and people were cool about it. So I just started doing that as a hobby to get back into filmmaking. Eventually, one of my friends said, hey, there's this company called Throtl. They're hiring an editor, you should check it out. And I didn't know what Throtl was, and I just applied to the job just out of curiosity. Eventually, Evan hit me up and brought me in for an interview, and I filmed this little video, a little promo video. They had the RX-8 at the time, so I filmed a little promo for the RX-8, and they liked it. There's actually a little bit of back and forth on that first promo. I remember I knew that like turnaround time was very important for YouTube, and I was like working a full-time job, so I kind of went and filmed at Throtl, and I took the footage home. And the next day I went to my full-time job, and like when I got off, I like edited it as quick as I could so I could get it back to them. And they were kind of underwhelmed with the edit, and they had a lot of notes, and I just kind of felt like, oh man, maybe I messed up. They kind of were just saying it just like wasn't wow enough, was essentially the boil down of the notes. And I was like, oh, all right, you want me to make it super extra, I'll make it fucking extra. And I remember chopping it up one more time, and I just like put in all the stops, like every fucking trick in the book that I knew to make like a video pop. And I sent it back, and they're like, oh yeah, this is like what we were looking for. And then they hired me. I remember my first day working at Throtl like very vividly. It was like a fucking dream, dude. I remember showing up, they had a desk prepared for me. It was a brand new desk, and there was a brand new computer. There was like jet tags and like a license plate cover and a few little like pieces of Throtl merch. But what really blew my mind was that new computer that they provided me. It was delivered by the owner of a PC company, and he showed up in a R35 GT-R and delivered me my new computer. And it's this guy, Alex Partial, who is a very cool dude that I got to know through working at Throtl. I just remember that experience being like so unreal to me, having my computer delivered to me by GT-R. I mean, where does that freaking happen? So that was like a very amazing first day. And then I remember just like my first few days like working there was like very, very just, I don't know if overwhelming is the word. It was like a fairy tale. I think that's the best way to explain it. It was like, I was like living my own fairy tale. And I remember getting sent out to work with Mickey. At the time, he had just finished The Bad Apple, and we were gonna go film a little, I think, walk around of the car at the famous cul-de-sac. And I remember Mickey asking me, so do you know how to handle a camera? He had no faith in me at all, because he wasn't there during the interview process. And I was like, yeah, I know how to make a camera work. So I shot this like little cinematic, and I think a little walk around of the car with Mickey. And then I think as we had finished, TJ Hunt and Dustin Williams come up the street. So we shared a space with TJ, and Dustin had a space. Like, I don't know if he had the space yet, but he was always at our shop. When I started doing my own YouTube channel, my car friends told me to check out TJ Hunt and Dustin Williams, like to get some ideas about how YouTube worked, because I really didn't know shit about YouTube at the time. These guys just pull up, and I was just cheesing. I was like, no fucking way. Like, I see these guys on YouTube all the time, and it's just like crazy. They're just casually pulling up and talking shit to us. And it was a lot of fun. It was very cool. And then I remember we posted that video, and I remember in the video, Evan said, you know, oh, we just hired a new editor. You know, we're really excited for what he can do for us and, you know, improve the quality of the Throtl YouTube channel. Let's roll some B-roll. That was the first like thing that I shot like as an employee of Throtl, and people were in the comments were just fucking brutal, dude. They were like, yo, that fucking sucks. Like, I don't know, they were talking so much shit about like my fucking edit and my filming, and they were like name dropping people that they knew that should get hired. Like, oh, dude, check out so-and-so's work, like hire him instead. I was like, oh, fuck. Dude, I was like, that's it, I'm cooked, like I'm fired, that's it. But I don't know, Evan and Mickey didn't like, they read the comments. Like, honestly, within the first 24 hours of a video going live, somebody at Throtl reads your fucking comments. So don't think that they don't look at comments, because we do, and it's very important to us. But it was just like really demotivating to see that. But Evan, they saw the comments, but it really didn't affect their decision on me at all. Like, they had a lot of confidence in me. I think more confidence in me than I had in myself. And my friend Ruel said to me, because he was one of the people that recommended that I work at Throtl, and he asked like, oh, how's your first week? And I told him like, dude, like I got roasted in the comments. He's like, dude, don't look at the comments. He's like, if you ever want to feel bad about yourself, read the comments. And he's 100% right. People can be brutal in the comments, you just gotta have thick skin. That's my biggest piece of advice to somebody who wants to start working in social media. You just have to have thick skin. People in the comments are gonna be mean and they're gonna be brutal. So just be ready for it. Like, I like to lean into it now. I just like comment like funny shit back, or I just don't respond at all. But like I said, even though we're not responding to your comments, we are reading them. Yeah, that was kind of my like first week at Throtl, and like it was so great. I didn't think anything could top it, but like the next 3 months, I was like, I was in a dream. Like, I kept pinching myself to make sure like I wasn't gonna wake up. It was just very surreal to be in that garage, because I had seen that garage on YouTube from TJ's channel a few times, and to like be there in person, be able to be allowed in there. I could just walk in there and like I'm supposed to be there. It's not even like I'm allowed to be there. I'm supposed to be there. They want me in there filming. It was just so much fun. Like, this was my first full-time like film gig, and I remember like I used to work in restaurants and like do bullshit work. I used to always think like, damn, I wish I was like filming right now. I wish I was editing instead of wasting my time washing dishes or taking somebody's order. I felt like my time would be so much better served working in the film industry and honing my skills as a filmmaker. There I was. Not only like was I like doing my craft, like I was doing it in the coolest place ever, like this sick garage. Because like there's a lot of shit film industry jobs too. Like I could be working in porn. I could be working doing like shit corporate videos or weddings. God, I hate doing weddings. Weddings are so hard to do. Like, God bless whoever works on weddings. Like, there's so many gigs that aren't good in film. So like to be working, I think one of the top places I could be working. Like I said, it was just so surreal to me coming into that garage, being around all these cool cars and these cool people. And it just got cooler like every day. Like, we would get a new car, or there would be like an influencer that I've seen on, you know, Instagram or on YouTube that I had never met before coming to the shop, and like all these cool collab opportunities. Oh, I remember giving away the first car. That was like the sickest thing ever. At the time, like I said, when I first came aboard, I filmed that RX-8, right? And I filmed the whole process of us building the RX-8. I remember we called the winner, and I think he kind of like couldn't believe it. He was a very big fan of ours. And at the time, we were only giving cars away to VIP members. So like anybody we called was like a big fan. And I remember John coming, and his dad was like a little bit skeptical. That's why his dad came with him, because he's like, dude, this is a scam. And I just remember John coming and just like being so happy to come into the garage, meet all the guys, and then like receive a car. And I could see in his face what was on my face when I first started working there. It was just like, I don't know, a kid in a candy store. And that's actually one of my favorite things about Throtl, was giving cars away. You know, I received a car build. I was one of the first employee transformations. I was actually the second one. And it felt so cool to like, they surprised me. People say that it was like, we scripted that. Like, I was totally 100% like surprised, and like I had no idea that they were gonna do this for me. It felt so cool to just like receive my car back and have it like fully done. And you know, there's that saying, it's better to give than to receive. And when we gave away our first dream build to Alex, the BRZ build, his face.
Hey, guess what? You're the winner of Throtl VIP Dream Build number 2. Yeah! Yeah! Let's go!
He's a freaking huge fan of Throtl, and when he came to Throtl, just meeting all of us would have been like a life changer for him. And the fact that we built his car for him, and like he was like an OG fan, and him receiving the car back and like the joy on his face, I could tell it was like 10 times more than the joy I had felt when I received my car, because I worked there every day, and like, this was a very special occasion for him because I knew what that feeling was, and to be able to provide that feeling to somebody else is like, it's the best feeling in the world. And I loved that we did it again and again and again. And I'm so happy that Throtl continues to do that program. But yeah, also through Throtl, I got to experience a lot of cool events, and I got like unique access to certain things that I otherwise would have never been able to have access to. I got to go to SEMA for the first time. So I got hired the week before SEMA. So my first day was actually, I think, like the week after SEMA. So my first SEMA was like a year after I had gotten hired, and that's how I kept count of like how long I'd been working at Throtl. I remember going to SEMA, and I remember going to dinner. I think Peak had sponsored the dinner, and I was sitting next to Eric the car guy and Tavares. I think Humble Mechanic was there, and maybe a few other influencers. I get my SEMA years mixed up sometimes on who I met which year. But it was just so cool to be like sitting with these guys that, you know, I've learned how to work on cars because of these guys' YouTube channels, and now I'm eating dinner with them. And it was very crazy. And then to see all the cool car builds, our sponsors like really take care of us at SEMA. They like treat us out to dinner, and they take us around, they introduce us to like the other influencers that they work with. And it was just like a really life-changing event. It was so cool. And I'm like forever grateful for all that stuff I experienced. And the whole first year was like that, man. I mean, I got to drive like our car builds to car shows that we were attending. You know, when I first started working at Throtl, I wasn't making that much money, but like every 6 months to a year, they were like giving me raises, and like, you know, the work that I was putting in I was getting rewarded for it. We all were. I don't know, it was just so much fun. Like we got to pick the cars that we were building and like talk about it and like come up with ideas. And I really felt like the company was ours. Like, you know, we all were contributing equal amount of effort, and we were all getting an equal reward out of it. And the e-commerce on top of it was like doing very, very well. That first year was like a very magical year for me. And I think it was a very magical year for the entire company. And from the first year on, the growth just continued to explode. The company was just doing so well, and like the social media was doing well. And it's crazy to think back, like in the beginning, it was just me, Evan's brother Rick, and Mickey. And there was another gentleman named Alex Bradley who was working with us at the time. And that was the whole team. That was the 5 of us. And we had 2 part-timers when I came aboard. It was Phoenix working in customer service. He was doing customer service pretty much all by himself. And then we had an intern named Tim. And that was the team. That was the whole company. And over the years, we brought on Ricky, and then we brought on Quinn, and then on the behind the scenes side, we brought on Sean, and we brought on Nate, and then we brought on like a handful of customer service guys. Oh, and then Errol. I can't forget Errol. Errol is another founder of the company that like never gets seen on camera. He does like the programming end, and he's a good friend of Evan and Rick Beckerman's from childhood, and he helped found the company and does all the programming and computer stuff that you never see. But his job is so important to making Throtl a functioning business. But yeah, it was just awesome. We grew the team. Even though the team grew, it still felt really tight knit. It's still like wasn't a lot of us, so everybody's job was still very integral and very important to the business. And then I remember it was about 3 years in, I remember what we were building. It was the R33. It was white then, but it became yellow. It was that R33 build we did with Top Rank, and it was around Christmas time, and Evan and Rick and Mickey announced to us that the business was being sold. From the beginning, I had always known that that was the Beckerman's goal, was to build this business to be sold for profit. You know, I'd always been a little nervous about that part of the business, but I didn't really think that was gonna happen for years. But I guess they got a deal from a company called Wheel Pros. At the beginning, we were all very excited. You know, the Beckermans told us, and this is what they were told by Wheel Pros, that, you know, we're gonna be getting support from the parent company, and, you know, we'll be getting funding, and we'll be getting opportunities to move up in the business, and, you know, all these good things. We'll be getting raises and all kinds of benefits. And Hoonigan was going to become our sister company, which we were all really excited because Hoonigan's a very recognizable and famous name in the industry. And, you know, I personally am a big fan of Ken Block, and I think a lot of people in the automotive industry are, and, you know, things like Gymkhana are just like well known in our industry. So I thought it was like a very good partnership, and I was really excited, you know, to be working with people from Hoonigan. I even thought there would be opportunities to like collab and work on cool film projects like Gymkhana, but it's kind of like that's where everything kind of went downhill. Our acquisition by Wheel Pros, that was kind of the beginning of the end for me. And I think that was kind of the beginning of the end for a lot of things. You know, there's nothing like a corporate takeover to kill a dream job, I guess. I worked at big corporations before, and I've worked at small mom and pop businesses, and I've always liked small mom and pops better. I just feel like big corporations, you just kind of get lost in the shuffle as an employee. I don't know, I just feel like it's very unrewarding. I was trying to be optimistic going into it. You know, maybe things will be different this time around, but it was exactly what I thought working for a corporation would be like. A few months after we got acquired and the dust settled, we weren't seeing much support from Wheel Pros. They weren't really sending us much budget. They gave us a little bit of money to expand into the other units next to us. That actually was a big cost savings for them. Instead of moving us into another location where the rent would have been more expensive. And then, yeah, we didn't see any raises. I worked there another 3 years. The whole time I was there, I didn't see a single raise. They gave us a 401k in the beginning, and then about, I think, a year or two into it, they actually took the 401ks away because the business wasn't doing good. And then they started handing down these sales goals that we weren't able to meet because they weren't giving us any additional funding and they weren't giving us any additional support. So they wanted us to pretty much increase our sales but do nothing differently than what we were doing. So like that's kind of the definition of insanity, right? Like to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. So that's kind of what we were tasked with. And then I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about this in specific, so I'll be a little bit broad in my explanation, but I think you guys deserve to know the truth. So before Throtl was acquired, the way we would acquire new customers to the website, we had a method of doing that worked very well, and it's a pretty standard method across all industries. Doesn't matter what e-commerce business you have. Most companies work this way and use this method of new customer acquisition. If you at all have ever worked in e-commerce, you probably know what I'm talking about. When Wheel Pros took us over, they gave us a new way of budgeting, so we couldn't spend in the method that we were spending before. It's not so much the amount, but the method that was important. Pretty much they told us we're gonna do accounting their way, but it actually made it much harder, almost impossible for us to acquire new customers while using their budgeting method. And we were trying to go back to our old budgeting method so we could go back to our old customer acquisition method, which worked very good. And they pretty much tied our hands and said no. And they still had these like very high expectations for sales and growth for us. It just kind of was like, you know, what could we do? And so they were looking at us as failures because we couldn't meet our growth. And so it didn't warrant for us to be getting raises and stuff like that in their eyes. It's kind of BS because, like, you know, during these 3 years, this was a time when inflation was kind of going crazy and other businesses were able to make very good profits. You know, you look at the stock market between like, you know, 2021 and 2024, and this, you know, every business was doing well except for Wheel Pros. So I think there were some internal issues. They leaned on the line, we're a family, and even though, you know, our business, Throtl, was not losing money, maybe we were making like a little bit. I don't know the exact finances, but essentially other parts of the business were not doing as well, so we're all gonna carry the burden together. I don't know. But anyways, I don't know, we were just all working our butts off to make this successful, and I feel like Wheel Pros was kind of working against us, or maybe they weren't working against us, but they weren't really providing us any tools to help ourselves. And at the same time, we were kind of the bastard child. They didn't really mess with us. They didn't, like, you know, take things away, and they didn't make things harder for us except for the one budgeting thing I mentioned, but they didn't make them any easier. And then we weren't meeting the sales goals that they had expected when they acquired us, so they really didn't know what to do with us. You know, this went on for like 2 years. Everybody was just kind of over it, and I think people were about to start quitting. And I was on the verge of quitting. I mean, you know, I'm making the same salary, but it's worth like 20-30% less than it was in 2020. And I think Evan could feel it. And Evan kind of tried to go to bat for us. He told us all, you know, hey guys, let's try to come up with some ideas that would like help benefit the business that you guys can do in your day-to-day, that we can add to your roles, so that I can present it to Wheel Pros and, you know, have some merit for giving you guys raises. And then after that, they announced that they're in Chapter 11. And there was no freaking way we were gonna get raises while we're in Chapter 11. That was kind of the last straw for me. I was like at the point where I was taking money out of my savings to kind of make ends meet, to keep working at this job. And it's just like, you know, I can't do that forever. Like I'll run out of savings eventually. At that point, I was like ready to quit. Like I was ready to either lose my job or quit. So it was just like going around in my head, like, all right, if I don't have a job at Throtl tomorrow, what am I gonna do? And I started thinking about leaving. In, I think, January, Evan told us, hey, Throtl's getting sold again. A new company / the owners of another company, I don't know if I can say it or not, came in and purchased Throtl from Wheel Pros. And at this point, I was kind of over it. I feel like everybody at Throtl was over it. I can only speak for myself, but for me, it just like wasn't fun anymore. If you look at Throtl before it got acquired, you know, how many cars we were building a year versus how many cars we're building now, I think it's like 4 times the amount of car builds with the same amount of employees. The only way that happens is if people put in overtime and work harder. And yet there was no extra money. It was pretty much coming out of my ass, right? Because now I'm having to make up for the deficit and I'm not even being paid enough to pay my bills. And I was like, you know, I'm over it. And I think everybody else was kind of over it. And then it kind of just, the whole job like wasn't fun anymore. Like in the beginning, we got to pick the cars. We used to like pick the projects and what we were gonna do on the car. You know, we would all sit around the table and just like spitball ideas. And it became now this thing where like either upstairs told us what cars we were gonna build, or just the people in charge were picking the cars. And then, you know, I wasn't even like in charge of my own content anymore. Like I had a lot of creative input in the beginning of what we were gonna build and how we were gonna film it and what the edits were gonna look like. And in the end, I just like was being handed these like timelines of, hey, this is what the edit's gonna look like, edit it. And like I was handed footage. I wasn't even filming anymore. You know, I was an editing gram, like, oh, let me make edits for the master. It was just so demoralizing. I think also maybe because I knew how good it could be and I knew how good it was before, and just like how far it had come away from what it used to be. And it was just like, the job was like becoming so corporate, which is okay if I was getting corporate pay. But that's the thing, like when you sell your soul to the corporation, like you're supposed to be selling it for a good price. And we were not getting good money. And then they were like, on top of like all the times they were asking us to work overtime, they were breaking my balls about coming in a little bit late. I don't know, just the vibe, dude, was not it for me anymore. So when Throtl got acquired by these new owners again, I kind of really felt like it was time to step away. It was a very difficult decision. You know, I almost stayed, but I had a number in my head that I needed to be paid. It's pretty much, I added up what it cost me to live in San Diego, my cost of living, plus being able to save a little bit. I said, that's the number that I want to be making, whether it's at Throtl or somewhere else. That's the number that I need to be making to survive. And I told them that number at the meeting. The one nice thing about the new acquisition was the new owners were willing to give everybody a little bit of extra money. And we each had a meeting. And in my meeting, I told them the number that I need to be at. And they were like, no. They're like, that's too high. They're like, we're going to pay you average wage for an average editor. And you know, I understood. I was kind of disappointed by their response, but it is what it is. I understand, it's business. It wasn't anything personal. But the number was below what I needed to be making, and I felt that there's more money out there for me to be making, and I kind of feel like at Throtl I had also reached a ceiling. One, how far I could progress in the company, and two, how far I could progress as an editor, as a creative individual. So I kind of really felt it was time to step away. So I had to make a decision. Was I gonna take their lowball offer, or was I gonna move on? And moving on is very scary. Humans are creatures of habit. It's very difficult for us to go into the unknown. It's easier for us to take the pain that we know than it is for us to face an unknown discomfort. So I made a pros and cons list. I do this a lot when I'm on a crossroads. And the pros and cons list was actually pretty even. And then on the pros of leaving, I wrote, I would be happy. And that's when I knew I had to leave. I didn't realize how unhappy I'd become until I wrote that down. You know, I used to go on vacation. I wasn't even able to go on vacation. From graduating college until working at Throtl, I went on like 2 or 3 vacations. those whole maybe 10 years, 15 years, because I couldn't afford it. That's one thing I am grateful to Throtl about was like, in the beginning, they were paying me enough that I could experience these things in life, like going on vacation. And I remember going to Aspen, one of the best fucking ski resorts in the world. At the end of the vacation, on the last day, everyone was moaning, oh, we gotta go back to work on Monday. I kind of was an asshole. I rubbed it in. I was like, oh, I got to go back to vacation on Monday. This was back in the first few years of Throtl, where like I really felt like I was going back to vacation. Like I felt like the ski trip was actually work because we were skiing, 5 days out of the week, and I was fucking exhausted. And I want to go back to California and chill in the sunshine, film cars, like sit at my desk and just edit and like kick back and not stress. And then at the end of the day, I'll go to the beach and go surfing. That was like my ritual because I had worked with these guys. I worked at a ski shop, and they have a very successful e-commerce business, which I actually was a big part of helping build. And that job was extremely stressful. And you busted your ass every day. At Throtl, we worked hard and we busted our ass, but it wasn't like stressful, especially in the beginning. It was fun. It was so fun that it negated any stress that was part of the job. And I just loved going to Throtl, and I just never felt like it was a job. I felt like it was a dream, like I said earlier. I felt like it was a dream come true, and I got to go somewhere cool every day and do what I loved doing, and I just couldn't believe someone was paying me to do it, and I was so ecstatic to be doing it every day. And then it got to the point where I was driving into work. I was like, why the fuck am I driving into work? Just turn around and go home, dude. Like, I didn't even want to be there anymore, and that's why I left. I just didn't want to be there. I'm a strong believer in like following your heart and following your instinct. My instinct has never led me wrong. I used to always follow my head and follow like what I thought I should be doing, making the smart decision. The smart thing to do would be to stay at Throtl until I found another job that paid more, but my heart just wasn't in it. And I said, you know what, this is a good time to exit. And yeah, now I'm on my own. And I've actually been out of Throtl for a couple months now. And I didn't realize how burned out I was until, I started resting. I literally took a month and a half where I just kind of didn't do anything. And I feel so good now. I feel like my head is clear. I feel like I'm ready to get back to work. I'm excited to be making videos again. I've been taking better care of myself. I've been eating healthier. I've had time to go to the grocery and cook. When I was working at Throtl, we were just ordering Uber Eats and eating unhealthy. And I was ignoring my health. I wasn't going to the doctor. I had health insurance through them. I just didn't have the time to go. Even my cars, there were maintenance things on my cars I wasn't doing. I was just letting them go because I didn't have time to work on them or bring them somewhere, and I didn't have the money to pay somebody to work on my cars. So many things just got away from me, and I'm just catching up on those things now, and I realized how unhealthy I was being mentally, physically, while I was working at Throtl. And because I think it was just a slow change, it happened so gradually that I didn't even realize how bad things had gotten. And again, I'm not trying to talk shit on Throtl. I'm not trying to talk shit on anybody there. I love everybody at Throtl. I owe a lot of what I have now to Throtl. I owe Evan Beckerman and Rick Beckerman and Mickey so much for giving me that chance. Because I was nobody. I was fucking nobody. I compare it to watching from the sidelines. I wasn't even in the stadium. I was watching from home on YouTube these guys doing what I wanted to do. And they pulled me from obscurity. And they brought me in, and they allowed me to make the art that I want to make, and they provided this whole new lifestyle that I would have never, ever had access to otherwise. I'm forever grateful to all those guys at Throtl, and I consider them lifelong friends, and I left on very good terms with them. I hope to see them in the future and hang out with them still, but I think I'm also just ready for the next chapter in my life. So at the beginning of this video, I also said I want to touch on why I think other content creators are leaving their YouTube channels. I think it's very similar reasons to mine. I know that a lot of the channels in the automotive space were also taken over by bigger companies. I think they went through a similar thing, working for corporate and having to meet all these sales goals, the things that come with being part of a corporation. I think it just didn't sit well with the people who work there, and I think other companies had the worst of it. I think Throtl actually we weren't as pressured as I think other companies were and other employees were by their corporate overlords. I think that had to do a lot with different exoduses. I watched like a lot of these big influencers, the videos that they made that are similar to this, and the things that they said really were very parallel to Throtl. Some of them were even worse. Their stories were worse, and I feel for them, but I'm also very happy for them because I think a lot of these people are creative people like myself, and they want to express themselves more freely, and I think that's also another reason people are leaving. It's a big reason why I left Throtl. I'm making Throtl content every day, which there was nothing wrong with it. It was just getting a little stale for me. I wanted to expand outside of cars and outside of Throtl's way of making videos, and I want to make Victor's videos. And I feel like a lot of these other creators are kind of in the same mind space that they have their own way of making videos, and I think they really want to express that. And as a creative person, I think it's very important to express your voice, express it freely, and express it the way that you want to express it. And I think that's what a lot of these other creators are looking for, are outlets and ways to express themselves without anyone else telling them how they should be doing it. But I think these creators leaving the big YouTube channels is also gonna bring a fresh air of things into the YouTube automotive creator space. It's gonna go back to a little bit more OG vlog style. I mean, it's already going that way. It's been about a year since most of these guys have left their YouTube channels, and you know, I see them creating really great content. It's very, I wouldn't say it's very different than what they were creating before, but it really is amplifying their own voice and a little bit more of that YouTube OG experience. That's a very positive thing for us as creators. I think it's a really positive thing for you as viewers, because I think the content is going to be more about the audience than it is like selling stuff. With that being said, it's also very difficult to create content as a career, and especially I'm very lucky I had the umbrella of Throtl to work under, because now myself and the other creators who left their full-time jobs are now having to fund their content on their own. Trying to start a YouTube channel, that's like the biggest hurdle I feel, is the money, right? You need the budget to build a channel and to support yourself, especially while the channel is not making any income. I think that's the major difference between working at a big channel and starting your own channel, is like funding and sponsorships, especially because when you're first starting, you're not legitimate, right? You have to build your legitimacy through views. And a lot of times big companies either already have the views, or at least they have some money or some capital to keep things going until the YouTube and social media can sustain itself. Okay, so with all that being said, I'm very excited to now be out on my own, and I'm very excited for the future of this channel. I think this is really gonna be a great opportunity for me to grow my own voice and to make content in my own style. So far, this channel has been really automotive focused. You know, my E30, my Datsun, my Subaru, and my Lexus. Also, I've incorporated a little bit of gaming into the channel with like Forza and sim racing. And I think I really want to continue doing those things. Cars and automotive are a really important part of my life. I really enjoy doing those things, but I also really enjoy filmmaking, and I really enjoy working with cameras and editing. And I have this like really great skill set now of working in social media. So I think I want to not pivot this channel, but I want to add to it, and I want to include some behind the scenes of filmmaking and content creation and giving tips on video editing. And I'd love to do consulting on social media and like helping other businesses and individuals grow their social media following using methods that I've learned throughout my 6 years working in the YouTube space and social media space. I don't know what that's going to do to my YouTube channel. Honestly, I don't know if that's content you guys are interested in watching. So let me know in the comments below what you guys are interested in seeing and hearing from me in the future. But in the short term, I'm planning to just make content in my own style. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm still trying to figure it out. And I think this channel is going to be a little bit of an experiment. I'm just going to make content and post it and see what works and see what doesn't. Honestly, that's how we made Throtl work. There was a lot of trial and error. Maybe I'll talk more about that in another video. I don't know. I'm very, very excited because things are so unknown right now. It actually gets me really, really excited. The last couple of years working at Throtl, like I knew where I was going, what I was gonna film, what I was gonna edit, you know, who I was gonna talk to. I felt like I was just going through the motions. Since I left Throtl, dude, I don't know what's gonna even happen tomorrow. I don't even know what I'm gonna do for the rest of today. And I think that's so exciting. And I wanna take you guys on that journey. Yeah, I'm just very excited for the future and the things that it holds for me. I think for the things that it holds for you as an audience. And thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in figuring this whole thing thing out with me and seeing where my journey goes, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and it's really gonna help me out in this journey. If you found this video entertaining at all, please give it a thumbs up, or if you fucking hated it, give it a thumbs down, because that actually helps me too. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.